Well, a major breakthrough or a major setback in the UFO disclosure, the UAP Disclosure Act? You be the judge. Last night, Congress approved a final UFO bill that they will vote on and then send back to the Senate before it goes off to the president's desk for a signature. This is the UAP Disclosure Act, which has been bundled in as part of a defense spending bill. Some are calling it a major breakthrough. Some are saying it's a big setback. We should probably even change the name of it to something else because it's now really watered down. Well, let's ask Dr. Michael Salla, who's been pouring through this new version of the bill to give us his assessment of this. Dr. Salla, at the beginning of last year, I think we were really excited that while there are some rumblings that Congress is going to do something with a lot of teeth in it, they're going to hold a lot of these black book projects to account. They're going to shine a light on them. The American people should see how many billions of dollars are being spent on these off the books programs. We're going to be able to catalog these, and the president will have to be made aware of it. The American people will have to be made. It sounded like, wow, we were going to get a lot of something here. And then last night, I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going to be as strong. What is your take going through these documents?
Well, it definitely is a disappointment for those that were wanting there to be a controlled disclosure of the whole UAP or UFO phenomenon, where all the records possessed by government agencies, corporations, would be made available to the American people at least 25 years after they were created, if not earlier than that. That the original provision, the original idea was to create a review board within the National Archives that would have subpoena power, that would report to the president, that would have 9 people that would be able to dig in to these records, whether they're in government agencies or whether they're in corporations, using the power of eminent domain, and to then eventually release that to the public. All that is gone in what has been passed. What has been passed is not a disclosure act insofar as UFOs are going to be revealed to the American or world public. It's really the creation of a UAP records collection in the National Archives, where all government agencies will be required to hand over whatever UAP records that they have to the National Archives, to the archivist, and any party that is getting funds from the Department of Defense or from the US government for any special access program that involves UAPs, that they can be denied funding if they do not disclose that to the relevant committee within the Senate or the House of Representatives. So in a way, that's not all that different to what already exists under the FOIA program and under required reporting mechanisms today.
So I understand. Yeah. So it's just, okay, just another nice name for it, but it's really much of the same we already have today. Just going through some of what Curious Explorer had posted up and summarized nicely on Twitter or X, that it requires the Department of Defense, to get a clean audit by 2028, whatever that means. The Gillibrand Amendment prohibits funds from being used on any UFO program unless disclosed to congressional leadership and Intel and Armed Services Committee. I thought that part really stood out to me. So the Gillibrand Amendment seems to live on here. Is that significant?
Well, on paper, it appears to be significant because it looks as though, well, any corporation, because that's really where these UAP programs exist today. I mean, they're the ones that are studying any retrieved craft, any non-human intelligence. These corporations are studying these, putting together programs for reverse engineering those. So those are the things that the public would really want to know about. But the Gillibrand Amendment appears to make it a requirement that they report this without, and if they don't report it, then they can lose funding. But the problem here is that they're going to be reporting it to the relevant committees in the House of Representatives or the Senate, typically the Intelligence Committee or the Armed Services Committee, and they can do that under a number of provisions for special access programs. Like they can, there's different types of special access programs. There's unacknowledged special access programs or waived unacknowledged special access programs. In each case, you have more and more restrictions on who knows about it. So on paper, this sounds good, but in effect, a corporation that is working on a reverse engineering of a captured non-human spacecraft, they can report what they're doing in the context of a waived special access program, but that means that others down the food chain, like people like Congressman Tim Burchett, I mean, they don't have a look into this. It's only the people like Mike Rogers and Mike Turner who head these committees, or the leaders that are going to be informed. But even then, they can't take notes or anything. So on paper, it looks good, but I mean, the effect is going to be very little can actually be achieved.
One thing stands out to me is that it puts the onus on the secrecy holders to label, to be responsible. I found that interesting, right? So if President Biden wants to say, make something secretive or not release certain documents because of for some reason, he would have to affix his name to that. And the American people could stand up at a press conference, if he ever holds one, and ask him, Mr. President, you withheld documents related to this particular incident or something. Can you explain why did you withhold that from the American people? So now it kind of puts the onus on the secrecy holders to put their stamp of approval on something too. That's big.
Well, there is this kind of provision within the UAP Records Collection Act that's now being created, or it's going to be passed. I mean, what we've had the committee report that resolved the differences between the House and Senate versions. That report was issued last night, and so now this is going to go to both the full House and the full Senate to be voted on. So it will be passed by both and then signed into law. So this is not, I think, going to lead to any great change in terms of how these UAPs are going to be eventually disclosed, especially when it comes to UAPs that are controlled or that these corporations are working on. I mean, this has been known for a long time that the meat of this UFO phenomenon, it's the corporations that hold the records, that hold the material, that hold the bodies, whereas the government agencies, it was learned, or the process was set up in the 60s and 70s when the Freedom of Information Act was set up, that all of that would be moved out of the control of government agencies into the hands of corporations because they could better hide the secrets. And so nothing within this act that's been passed is going to really change that.
Unfortunate. I'll get you out of here on this, Doc, which is what do you think is the biggest letdown in this? What was the I think the biggest thing you were hoping for that didn't make it into this final bill?
Well, the creation of this review board that would oversee a disclosure process whereby there would be this 9-man board that would consult with the president on how much and how quickly to release all of the UFO records, both from government agencies and what was prized from the hands of corporations that are unwilling to share this. Because, I mean, the bottom line here, Clayton, is that you look at a corporation like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, or Boeing. I mean, they've been sitting on these records for decades now, and they're very, very slow to kind of like do things with the whatever's been retrieved, because they operate under very heavy layers of secrecy. Whereas new companies like SpaceX, I mean, they could, if they got their hands on these technologies, I mean, they could very quickly develop breakthroughs, innovation. I mean, that's exactly what Elon Musk and SpaceX have been doing. They've been making these other corporations look like dinosaurs in terms of returnable or reusable rocket propulsion systems. So they could do the same with these with the debris of UFOs that have been secretly studied in these corporations. But now that's not going to happen. So people like Elon Musk, who maybe are very curious about this UAP phenomenon and want to know, well, if there's any debris, can I have a look at it? Under this act that's been passed, I mean, he's not going to get a look into that. Or at best he can hope for is that there's going to be something in the National Archives in terms of records describing some of the sightings that have been made, but nothing in terms of what the corporations have in their possession. And that's I think the big loss here from the original version of the UAP Disclosure Act, that corporations previously under the power of eminent domain would have had to surrender the debris or the records that they had to this 9-person review board, but now that doesn't exist.
Great summation of what's in and what's out of this. Dr. Michael Salla, thank you so much. We'll be watching now as this goes to the full Congress for a vote, and then what the final bill will be before it hits the president's desk. I'm sure there'll be a lot of glad handing and applause and clapping among these members of Congress, because we did get some pieces of this, but it is a massively watered down version of what I think you and I and a lot of the American people had hoped for. Certainly a lot of people in the UFO community had been hoping for. Dr. Salla, great to see you. Thanks, as always, for your insights.
Thanks, Clayton.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.